people constantly ask me why I don't, and I really don't know, other than I'm just absolutely scared to death of coming out and being myself.
Oh, come on.
That was Paul Lynde's reasoning for avoiding the Carson Daly Show. He was one of the most recognizable stars of the 60s and 70s on sitcoms like Bewitched and game shows like Hollywood Squares. If you didn't recognize his face, you knew his voice. It brought characters to life in many Hanna-Barbera movies. His campy personality endeared him to fans. It seems like there was nothing he was afraid to make a joke about, but that was untrue. He built a strong career, but one wrong word could have sent it tumbling. Keep watching to learn why Paul Lynde kept a frustrating secret his whole life. Early life. Paul Lynde was born June 13, 1926 in Mount Vernon, Ohio. He had 6 siblings. He was closest to his brother Cordy, who died at age 21 at the Battle of the Bulge in WW2. His parents died within 3 months of each other 5 years later in 1949. He had a loving mother but wasn't close to his father. He was a fat child and got made fun of for it. He always used comedy as a defense mechanism, even if the town didn't love his shows. Paul graduated from Mount Vernon High School in 1944 and played the bass drum in his high school band. He studied speech and drama at Northwestern University. His crazy career. After graduation, Paul moved to New York and took odd jobs to put food on the table while he waited for his big break. His first stand-up appearance was at the famous supper club No. 1 Fifth Avenue. He made his Broadway debut in the revue New Faces of 1952. The show was filmed and released as New Faces in 1954. Paul returned to Broadway in 1960 as Harry McAfee in Bye Bye Birdie. It was his first major role and a great chance to be campy. He reprised it in the 1963 film adaptation. Paul was a hot commodity throughout the 60s. He was a regular on The Perry Como Show between 1961 and 62. He appeared in sitcoms like I Dream of Jeannie and The Munsters. He appeared on variety shows like The Ed Sullivan Show and The Dean Martin Show. He even found a few film roles in 1960, including Send Me No Flowers and The Glass Bottom Boat. A Bewitching Big Break. Paul's role on Bewitched was his big break. He joined the show as Harold on the first season episode Driving is the Only Way to Fly on March 25, 1965. He immediately became friends with the show's star Elizabeth Montgomery. He was also close to her husband, who was also the director and producer, William Asher. He said, quote, "There was nobody really like him. He saw everything as a joke, and it made him a natural." They created a recurring role for him as Uncle Arthur. Paul made 10 appearances as the character, starting with The Joker is a Card on October 14, 1965. From center stage to center square. Paul is also well known for his many appearances on Hollywood Squares. He became one of its most popular guest stars in 1966. He then earned a permanent spot as the center square. Contestants would have to call upon him at least once almost every round. The show gave him a chance to show off his comedic chops. He gave funny, well-timed, and hilarious one-liners in response to questions. Many were filled with double entendres, deviant behavior, or hinted at his biggest secret. Take this one, for example.
According to a guide to contemporary living, it's always the best gift for a nun. What is always the best gift for a nun?
A carton of cigarettes.
Carton of cigarettes?
I was raised by nuns. They know I'm just being silly.
Paul appeared in over 1,000 Hollywood Squares episodes. He felt boxed in by it and left in 1979. The show's ratings plummeted without him, and he was asked back in 1980. He turned them down but changed his mind when he was offered co-star billing with host Peter Marshall. He returned in the spring of 1980 and stayed until the show was canceled in 81. His unique voice and comedic timing also made him a perfect voice actor for animated programs. He appeared in several between 1969 and 74, especially those by Hanna-Barbera. Going out on his own. Paul got his own ABC sitcom, The Paul Lynde Show, in 1972. It fulfilled his contract after the canceled 9th season of Bewitched. Critics thought it was too similar to All in the Family, the most popular primetime show at the time. They did appreciate the writing and the veiled sexual innuendo. Paul got a Best Actor Golden Globe nomination for the show, but it had low ratings and only lasted one season. Paul's next show, Temperatures Rising, ran from 1973 to 74. It had even lower ratings, and plans to resurrect it didn't work. Paul's span of successes and bombs got him plenty of attention. He once joked about being humble on Hollywood Squares, but he showed how humble he actually was in 1976 at the American Guild of Variety Artists Awards. He was voted the funniest man of the year. He immediately gave the award to the host, Jackie Gleason. His frustrating secret. Paul admitted he loved hiding behind the mask of an acting role. He said,
For me, I've always gone out in a play, so I could hide behind that particular character I was playing, and it's a protection.
Paul lived a campy, flamboyant life. Rumors about his sexuality were everywhere. TV viewers seemed to know thanks to his gay jokes on Hollywood Squares. Despite that, he never acknowledged it in public. It wasn't talked about in magazines either. Entertainment journalists of the time rarely pried into the private lives of performers best known for being on game shows. The closest the media ever came was when they talked about Stan Finesmith. They described him as his, quote, hairstylist, sweetmate, and chauffeur bodyguard, and only included one photo of them together. Kathy Rudolph was one of Paul's close friends. She said he was frustrated about staying in the closet. There are reports that he came out to his friends eventually, but he, quote, kept a rigid line between his gay friends and his celebrity friends, rarely mixing the two. She also admits there had to be a general separation in his fan base, and that was the main reason he kept his sexuality hidden. Paul preferred having women in the audience, saying,
Naturally, my public are women. I just like to keep it a mystery. I don't know. I think if I knew, I'd become very conscious of it and maybe lose what turns them on. I don't know why, but there's no denying it, that when I look out in an audience and there are more men than women, I'm in trouble. But when there are women outnumber them, I'm home.
His struggles with alcohol. Paul developed a reliance on alcohol to get through the difficult times of his life. He was arrested for public intoxication more than once. He could also become cruel and violent when he came to work drunk. Musician Jack Holmes said, quote, every word out of his mouth was venomous, with a sting that really hurt into every unexpected vulnerability a human might have. One of the earliest examples was in October 1977 at Northwestern University. Paul was the Grand Marshal for homecoming. He was at a fast food restaurant near campus after the parade and made racist remarks at black professor James P. Pitts. He later blamed the behavior on being exhausted and drunk. A drunken accident became deadly on July 18, 1965. Paul was partying with his friend James Bing Davidson. After hours of drinking and horsing around, James slipped and fell 8 stories. Paul tried to pull him up, but it was too late. He was also arrested after filming the variety show Donnie and Marie in January of 1978. He was outside a tavern and charged with interfering with a police officer. His car had been broken into. The officer was investigating another crime, but he kept forcing him over to look into his problem. The complaint was later dropped. These events eventually convinced Paul to get his life together. He gave up drugs and alcohol in early 1980. He also worked to make up with and apologize to anyone he thought he had hurt. His death. Paul was never one to miss a party. Friends began to worry when he missed a birthday party for his friend, actor and model Paul Baresi. He and another actor, Dean Dittman, tried calling him and knocking on his door, but got no answer. They broke into the side entrance of Paul's home in Beverly Hills, only to find him dead. Paul Lynde died of a heart attack at age 55 on January 10, 1982. His ashes are buried at the Amity Cemetery next to his brother John and sister Helen. His mother, father, and brother Carden are buried at the same cemetery. A legacy of laughter. Paul's vocal style has inspired several other characters. They include Roger the Alien in American Dad, Uncle Arthur in the 2005 film version of Bewitched, and droid EVA-4D in Star Wars The Clone Wars. Drag queen Ben de la Creme even won the Snatch Game episode of RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars by imitating him in 2018. Richard Squire's experimental 2018 documentary Doozy looks at the queer-coded nature of Paul's voiceover work. Comedian Billy Eichner and producer Tom McNulty plan to make a biopic of his life called Man in the Box. Whoopi Goldberg took over his center square on Hollywood Squares. She says that while she's not sure if the public knew about Paul's sexuality, to her, quote, there was no one funnier than Paul Lynde. Now it's time to hear from you. What's your favorite memory of Paul Lynde? Let us know in the comments section below.